I just remember, like, I could see every piece of his life just flashed before me. Like, I remember him being a baby and bringing him home from the hospital and, getting his little suit ready for his, coming home from the hospital and being so excited to all the things that he was doing in life. And it was just like everything just flashed that quick. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. And then it's like, next thing you know, I'm preparing a suit for his funeral. And I'm thinking, this isn't right. I'm not supposed to do this. This is not the way this is supposed to be. It was just like everything stopped. I felt like not only did Taylor die, but so did I.
I feel like a lone wolf howling for my pup. It doesn't matter how many other children you have. And they don't get it. They don't understand. They think, aren't they enough? It's not. It's two separate things. And it is a loss that is undescribable. There's not a word for it.
Not a day goes by, Dad, I don't think about him and miss him. Regret.
He knew every time he did this, it could be his last time. Why? Why would you do that? If you knew that it just is almost, like Russian roulette or just, I don't know, I guess it's just that powerful. It just gets a hold of you and it won't let you go. Will not let you go. He owns you. After they get you, after you use, he owns everything about you. Takes you away from your family. There it is. And that's just all there is to it. It's that powerful.
I see. Go follow Daddy. You helping Daddy mow the grass?
Taylor, of course, he was my only son. And, so you have like a different bond, I think, with your only boy. I have 3 other girls. He was always, real bubbly kid. I'm very, very smart. I know everybody says, oh, my kid's smart. But I mean, Taylor was one of those kids that, like when he was 2 years old, he could name all 50 states. Taylor loved his sisters, but he also loved to pick on them because he was the only boy, so what fun was it that, he was gonna have a good time with them, and he was always such a big kid. Taylor was probably like, if you looked at a normal kindergartner, Taylor looked like he was in 2nd grade. He was just a big kid. He was huge, So when he was little and I would always be carrying this 3-year-old around, people would kind of look at me funny because he looked like he was 6. I mean, he was huge, but he was my baby and he was my big kid, so I didn't care. But I have to admit, he was a mama's boy. Nobody ever wanted to watch him when he was little because he would cry the whole time. He always called me honey when he was little because his dad called me honey, so he'd be like, I want my honey. But now I look back and I think, that was kind of cool, I mean, not every mom gets to be called honey,
Where's Natty? There's Natty Butt. There's Natty Butt. Hi.
As a kid, she was totally independent. Everything was, I do myself, mama. Early walker, early talker. She really loved outdoors, and she loved going places with her dad. Fishing, hunting, from the time she was little. She did Girl Scouts. She was, to me, your average child, and a little bit above average as far as grades. Very outgoing, lots of friends. Her and her brother, she was very protective over him. They had their arguments. I'm not going to say they didn't because they were siblings, but sure, they were each other's confidant, especially when they were in trouble or, they would go to each other, and she really watched out for him. I never saw anything that made me think that she was a depressed child. Anything out of the ordinary other than being smart mouth as she became a teenager. So there wasn't anything early on that I recognized.
Well, I have 2 other children. Brandon's my middle child. Growing up, he played t-ball, the baseball thing. Sports wasn't his thing. He'd just be out there, watch the ball roll right by him, just kick the dirt. He was more hands-on. Brandon was very talented. He loved working on bicycles when he was in grade school. He could take a bicycle frame and build BMX bikes, loved to skateboard. The kid, oh my gosh, skateboarded out of this world. Everywhere we went, he had a skateboard with him. Brandon was just more daring child, free-spirited. He loved music. He loved going to music festivals and things like that. Just more willing to try things. I always say that he was my 60s child. He should have been brought up in the 60s because he loved, Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, all that kind of music. He should have been born in the Woodstock era, peace, love. He'd have been happy in a van down by the river. He would. Money didn't matter to Brandon. That was evil to him. He was just a free spirit. That's the best word I can explain him.
He was an adorable kid. He was a good-looking kid. He had a great personality. He was a charmer. And he was always very good with words, even at a young age. And he was Travis. He was the older cousin that the younger cousins looked up to and loved. He was the ball player. He was the wiffle ball champion at the family outings. He went to the same school with the same kids all his life. We lived in the same house. And he had a very large group of friends, all good kids. Kids that he grew up with, kids that he played baseball with and went to Boy Scouts with. And he was the friend to all his friends, the kind of friend that would do anything for you.
She excelled in school, elementary school, and junior high. The transition into high school is when, changes happened.
In his younger years, he was way above average. And then as he got older and the preteens, he concentrated less on school and more on friends. But he was very bright. But his grades did start going down as he got older.
He wasn't a real social kid, so as he started to get involved in going to school and things like that, that's when we started noticing more of behavior problems. It was almost like he had a little anxiety and kind of socializing with other kids. He just didn't feel like he fit in anywhere, and he would openly explain that to me, and so he would act out a lot.
All through grade school, he did really good. I really didn't have a problem with him until freshman year when he went to high school. That whole freshman year was kind of non-existent. I think Brandon might have started smoking pot then.
She had already been drinking, smoking pot, probably a good 2.5 years prior to me knowing. She was very good with hiding it because I guess my rules were a little bit stricter.
I knew that by the age of 16 that he had drank and pretty much confirmed that he tried drugs. Marijuana, I know he did. And I don't think he was afraid of trying other things. I knew at that time, I don't think he was afraid to try other things.
Probably around the age of 14, he started smoking pot. I knew that he was. Of course, we'd sit down and have the talks. Taylor, you're gonna get in trouble. You're not smoking. Weed's illegal. You're not supposed to smoke it. You can't smoke pot. But he would say, but I feel like it calms me down. well, Taylor, you can give me every excuse in the world, but you're not supposed to smoke weed. You know, you can't do it. You're just not going to do it.
I know it's 5th grade when you win the DARE essay, but she was so proud of it. She was so anti-drug. I spoke to my children about drugs.
They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and in my mind, and it sounds so weird now, but you think if that's the worst thing that your kid does, he could be doing a lot more. It's not that bad.
Well, I was a hippie in the 70s, and there were a lot of drugs around, and I am not innocent in any means of having tried things myself. And I made it, and I fully expected him to make it through those times. And having been around drugs before, I'm not as worried about especially certain drugs as maybe a lot of people are. And a lot of times that hurts me that I wasn't stronger opposed to recreational marijuana use or drinking, or that's about all I really didn't come down on.
When I look back now, I look at it and I could see that, you know, obviously he was on medications for ADHD, which he was always being switched to something else if something wasn't working, or he had something that woke him up in the morning, something to maintain him through the day, something to put him to sleep at night. In my own personal feeling, I feel like that was his first, probably the first time that he had really been exposed to some type of drug in his system. And it's not to point fingers or blame, because we were all not sure exactly what behaviors were going on with Taylor. But then when Taylor started, he never felt like he fit in, so he started kind of hanging out with the kids that like to smoke pot. Well, it's like they kind of accepted him. He felt accepted in that group. So then instead of taking his medicine, he thought, well, I'll self-medicate, I'll smoke weed because it makes me feel better than the medicine does. And I know they were taking probably prescription pills from whomever's parents they got them from. It got to a point, though, where Taylor wasn't going to school.
He quit in his senior year. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy, and high school seemed like a lot of nonsense to him, and he would rather just go to work. He had plans on getting his GED, but he never got it.
She had been in a little trouble right prior to 17, and the officer let her know that she can leave home at 17 and did not have to live there any longer under her parents' rules. Once she found that out, I had no control whatsoever. So she went to live with different friends of hers. I actually had not spoke to her in a couple months when I went to her graduation. And she had these parents just convinced that she had a horrible life at home. She had everything she needed at home. What she didn't have was the freedom to use drugs, alcohol, and stay out as long as she wanted. I'm not saying that these particular parents allowed her to do that there, but she had the freedom to not worry about coming home and mom seeing her high or drunk or me on her. The hardest part is that she would tell me she hated me. And I knew that she probably did at the time. I mean, I am causing her grief.
You know, Brandon would leave and go with friends and stuff and might not, come home for a couple days. I was always in contact with him, texting or whatever. Are you okay? Make sure you're okay, that type of thing. And that's where you start falling into the problems, is when they get to that certain age, you want to help them, but they're that age, so, you think you have control, but you really don't,
His mother and I had gotten divorced and was separated in 2005, and actually got divorced in 2006. Here I was living single in the 3-bedroom house that all my kids were raised in. And he had gone and was living with his mom, and he wasn't real happy with that situation, and wanted to come back and live at the house and help me out quite a bit. Things were going great, just he and I, bachelors. He came to me in October of '08, and he said, I need to talk to you. And I said, yeah. He said, can we sit down? And so we sat down at the dining room table, and I'm expecting I got a girl pregnant, you know, or I got in trouble with the law or something like that. He said, I've been using heroin, and I think I'm addicted. Heroin?
And I didn't even really know what I mean, I knew heroin was around. I've heard of it before, but I never knew that it made its way back. And then when I found out he was doing that, I just was like, no way. I was floored. I noticed what Brandon wearing long sleeve shirts all the time is what it was. And then I kind of started thinking about the missing the spoons and his attitude and that kind of thing. I think I asked him to pull up his sleeves, and then when he showed me that, he admitted that he was doing that. But then, of course, he told me that he had tried it a few times, that he wasn't doing it anymore.
One day his dad had called me and he said, you know, I think Taylor's doing heroin. I'm like, no, he's not. Taylor ain't gonna do that. I mean, Taylor doesn't even like needles. I mean, you can't even take him to the doctor to get a shot and he flips out. So there's no way, not my Taylor. Taylor wouldn't do that. Well, then one day his dad called and said, I need you to get out here right away. There's something going on. I mean, Taylor was in the bathroom for a long time. He came out, he's throwing up, he's having all these problems. He starts describing all these symptoms that are symptoms of someone that's using heroin. I said, come on, you're coming with me. I was just gonna drive him to the hospital. And he kept begging me, please, Mom, don't. I said, then Taylor, I'm pulling over right now and you need to tell me what you were doing. Well, that was the first time that he admitted to me that he was doing heroin. He wasn't shooting it up, he was taking the pills. I think I didn't look at it as being a serious thing because I thought, oh, heroin, you think needles, you think injecting, you think death.
So she always knew about heroin, but I had told her that you used a needle. Well, come to find out, it was back with a vengeance, and you did not need to use a needle to start, and the purity had changed so much that it was snortable and it wasn't as scary for girls especially. And then one night, her and her friend were looking for ecstasy, and this guy said, no, I don't have any, but I have something else that you'll like. And she asked what it was, and he said, it's China. She didn't know what China was, but he said, it's like ecstasy, you'll like it. So she used it, and she liked it, and she continued to use it. The hair stood up on my arms, and I started sobbing, and somehow it came to me. I tried to call her, she wouldn't answer. I called her dad. I said, I know what's wrong with Natalie and her boyfriend. It's heroin. He said, no way. And I said, I am almost positive.
How'd you come to using heroin? He said he was at a party and he was turned on to it. And it was a friend of his, someone that friend knew from college that had the heroin, and said, try this, you'll love it. And he said he was right. I did. I loved it.
I felt disgusted. I couldn't even say the word for 2 months, you know. Like I said, you think of, you know, somebody in an alley, you know, pushing a grocery cart, hadn't showered in weeks, months, whatever, and I thought there's no way that, you know, I did. I felt dirty, and disgusted that my kid would even do something like this, maybe a little embarrassed of that I couldn't even tell anybody anything like that, you know? It almost makes you feel just, I was angry, just all of the above. I just, felt like I was hit with a bag of bricks. I really, really couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. I never in a million years would have thought that he would have done that.
So I'm like, you're coming to live with me. You can move in with me. I'll see, mom's the fixer, mom's the doer. We're gonna take care of Taylor, When Taylor got caught stealing that bottle of vodka, everything just started to go crazy out of control. He got locked up for almost a month. And he was scared when he was there. I think I was scared for him.
I got the phone book out and started calling rehab places, drug treatment places, and we found one that would see him that night. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a clue how to deal with it.
This just didn't happen to people like me, the way I had raised my kids, around no drugs and alcohol. Well, she was always more able to call her father and confide in him than me because of my temper. She admitted to him, and immediately we had her on the road to a medical detox place.
Brandon tried rehab twice. The one time he ended up leaving because it was not a medical detox facility, and I didn't know. I'm new to this rehab stuff. I didn't know there was medical detox or regular detox or whatever.
I didn't know what was gonna happen to him in there. And so I prayed all the time, but I wanted Taylor to, for some reason I kept feeling like I needed him to get right with God, And he kept saying, Mom, don't worry about me, don't worry about me. And then one day he called me and he goes, I found the Bible under my cot. If you lay all your worries on God, everything will be okay. And I know I'm gonna be okay, so please don't cry anymore. And, we'll work this out. So I'm thinking, okay, I felt better. I, did everything I thought I needed to do. I gotta get my baby out of there because I don't want him in there, And looking back, I kind of wish I would have just left him there. But the judge, since he had an alcohol offense, had said, okay, he had to go to rehab for 30 days for alcohol rehab.
When he got finished, he learned a lot, and he was sure he was going to be able to stay away from it, and he even told me that he might like to be a counselor. And I said, I think that's great. I wish, I hope you can help people too.
He got out in July, 45 days he stayed, and I thought everything was good. Everything was going good.
The last few months of her life, she had enrolled in college at Allied for medical assistant. She said to me one night, we were sitting outside on our deck, and she said, Mom, I would rather be dead than back on heroin. And I said, with all the confidence in the world, I can remember looking at her and smiling and saying, honey, you don't have to worry about that. You have come so far this time. You're not going back. And I really, for the first time, believed it because she had everything going for her. I figured out she had relapsed about 10 days prior to her death. She had enrolled in college. She was working full time. She was under an extreme amount of pressure, and I understand that. Things got worse over the course of the next week, and she ended up getting to the point where she couldn't keep her job because she was sick. She left work. They fired her on the spot. That was a Wednesday. She confided into her boyfriend. I think all the desperation fell in on her. And that's when she had decided that she was going to try an overdose. And when that didn't work, she said that she was going to make sure it worked on that Saturday, unbeknownst to her father and I. She walked out of his house that day, and he thought it was a little strange just how she was just left, and he had walked in the door. And when he walked in his room, he saw his drawer ajar, and his gun was missing. And he did own these guns legally. Well, he's frantic calling her, thinking she's going to pawn it. He called me to tell me what had happened, like a couple hours into it. He was trying to get her to come back, and she was returning his phone call and saying, "Don't worry, I'm sorry. I didn't want you to know I was using again. I'm just going to go get high. You're going to get your gun back. I'm not going to pawn it." Well, he said, "I want it back here. I'm giving you 30 minutes or I'm going to the police." By that time, he had gotten a hold of me, and I said, "Yes, please go report the gun stolen." She had gone to the Lumiere parking lot. There was quite a commotion down there from the security guard working the lot on a Saturday evening, early evening, and enough commotion to where he radioed in for another security guard to walk over to the vehicle. During that time, the story is that people skedaddled that were around her car. Come to find out, one of the people that was there was her boyfriend. They scored their dope. They used. When the security guard walked up to her car and asked her to please come out, and she was alive and in the back seat, and she wouldn't come out, and then he heard the gunfire. So she was immediately dead, and had said that she could not see any hope and to please forgive her. She had disappointed us and herself. Didn't see any hope. The only thing I can say is that the last 6 months of her life, and even though I have found out afterwards that she really wasn't clean like I thought all the time, she was struggling so hard, but we finally had connected. And she told me things, and she did tell me she loved me.
I went on to work, and he never called. So finally, I start blowing up the house phone. "What are you doing? Where are you at? Taylor, call me. Taylor, call me." So finally, he answers a little after 9 o'clock, and I said, "Listen, you have to call your dad. You got your job interview today." Taylor was getting his GED. He had this girlfriend. Everything looked like the perfect picture of somebody that was getting their life together. He's like, I know. He's kind of getting frustrated with me doing my mom nagging thing, but it was my right. I said, all right. I go, "Taylor, listen, I just want you to get your life together. I want you to get on track." He goes, "I know, I will." And then for whatever reason, it was just kind of a weird, it kind of got silent on the phone. And he's like, "I love you, Mama." Well, he always knew, he always had that thing that he could be like, "I love you, Mom." I'd be like, "I love you too, T," And then I would start laughing or something, and then, he would think he was forgiven, because that's just kind of how he worked. But, and I was like, "Okay, I love you too, T." I said, "I will call you later." I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I talked to him. When I came home, he wasn't there. I kept trying to call his friends. I was like, I was getting more mad because it was like I knew it probably wasn't a good thing, but I wanted to believe that he was doing what he was supposed to do. I really believed in my heart. And I was even more mad by the time I went to bed because I couldn't get a hold of him. It was past his curfew. I didn't know what was going on. So I went on to bed. And then the next morning I got up. Immediately, I ran out to the front of the house and I looked out front. His car was parked in the Circle Drive. So I'm like, yes, he's home, but he's in trouble. And something, I don't even know why or what it was, but it just drew me, I needed to go to his room. I just kept feeling like I had to go there. And then whenever I walked in and I opened the door, it was just kind of like I could see him laying on his bed kind of across the room, but it was like he was staring straight out, straight up. And I was like, "Taylor, what are you doing?" And he wouldn't answer me. And I'm like, Taylor. And it was like, I kind of knew that something was wrong with him. So I walked over to his bed. And when I just like reached out to touch him, he was like really, really cold. But it's just like I looked at him, I'm like, what are you doing? He was just like staring at me, but I was looking at him like I didn't understand, because I'm looking into the face of death and it's my son. But I kept thinking, that's not right. I know this is not what I'm seeing. And I immediately went into shock, because I'm like, I just remember even screaming, no, why? Why does it have to be Taylor? And I knew what happened, and it was like I knew everything immediately, but everything stopped. Everything, my whole life, everything just stopped right then. There's no preparation for that. I remember all these people coming to our house, all these paramedics, and you got, detectives and everybody there, and it was almost like I was in such shock. I couldn't even believe it. All these people are sitting here, and it's like I'm looking at everybody, and everybody's coming in, and everything, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. I'm like, no, I'm just sitting here waiting, because they're going to go back there, and they're going to fix this. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do anymore. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, what I was supposed to say. All these people are coming around. Everybody's like, I'm sorry, but then they all walk out the door and they go to live their life. And my life's never going to be the same,
I should have held him accountable for where his money was going, for what he was doing, why he was sleeping. I kept thinking that one day he's going to realize that he's given everything for this high, and he was going to quit. He did quit. He finally got a good job, decent paying, with benefits and retirement. And one day he got paid, and the temptation he could not resist, and he used it one more time. Far as I know, it's the first time he injected. He injected the heroin that was laced with fentanyl. He overdosed. He was with a girl, was at a friend's house. His friend's parents were gone. When the friend and the girl woke up in the morning and they went down to wake Travis up, he had been dead for hours. They called an ambulance, and they got his heart beating, and they put a ventilator in him and took him to the intensive care. They lowered his body temperature, and then as they gradually raised the temperature, they hope that he goes into a coma. He didn't go into a coma. All of his organs began failing. And it was time. So his mother and his brothers and sisters and I agreed it's time to take him off. One last hope. Come on, kid. At the funeral home, we decided to have him cremated. Somebody had to identify him, and they did minimal makeup, put a black cape around him, and you just see his face. He was the most handsome dead young man. was the last time I saw him.
Brandon had left that Friday with a friend of his from Redbud, one of his really good friends. My whole family was going out to eat for my parents' anniversary. And Brandon, he didn't show up. I had this feeling something was wrong. I really did. I don't know. I just had this strange feeling about me. My son's girlfriend had handed my husband her cell phone. I asked my husband who that was, and he said it was Alan, our police chief in town, and he wanted to know when we were going to be back. He had to talk to us. And with Brandon's 2 prior overdoses that year, I thought, I knew. I really did. I really knew something was wrong with him. And so we pulled in the driveway, and I seen the officer go down the side street. And then when he seen us, he backed up and came in the driveway. And when he got out of the car, he just stared at me. And I remember dropping to my knees and saying, "No, Ellen, not my baby. Not my baby." And he wasn't answering me. And I was waiting for him to tell me, "Chris, what are you talking about? I'm not here to tell you that." And he wasn't answering me, and he wasn't answering me. And I said, "Ellen, not my baby." And he still wasn't answering me. And then I just started freaking out. And then Billy started freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God, no way. So I had found out Brandon had passed away. The police officer told us actually at 1:52 that afternoon. He said that they had got somebody out in the parking lot that said, "Hey, do you want to buy some B?" Which is what they call heroin boy, I guess. And then went back to the hotel room over on North Kings Highway and continued to party. And then he said they laid down and went to sleep. And when he woke up, he had heard some sounds coming from Brandon and thought he was snoring. And he went back to sleep. And then when he woke up again, he said he saw blood coming from Brandon's nose and mouth, and ended up dragging my son down 2 flights of stairs to the parking lot below. Didn't even have enough decency to call 911. And it's still so new to me. I'm still where I can't believe this happened. I really, really can't believe it happened. I keep thinking that he's just somewhere and he's going to walk through that door. And then when reality sets in, it just kills me.
My life and her father's life and her brother's life has forever changed. I know we are the main ones that are affected. I don't see my life ever improving. Every day is a struggle. I might have, I'll say, okay moments, okay hours, and I'm okay with okay, but they don't last. And any given day, my anger can go towards anybody that had the involvement, and my anger goes towards me. I have a real hard time with if I would have done something different just in that last couple. What if I would have said, "Come home, it's okay that you relapsed. We're gonna work on this." That's not how I reacted. So there is a big guilt factor.
And I beat myself up for a long time thinking I should have done something else. But really, there wasn't anything else I could do. And then one day I was sitting there and I thought, how do I move forward? And one of the biggest things I think that helped me was acceptance. And I thought, well, really, I have to accept the fact that heroin really didn't kill my kid. It was the choice that my son made to use heroin that killed him. I went through being angry. I was really angry at Taylor for, you knew better. and then I had to come to the acceptance part and forgiveness, that it wasn't my fault.
I guess it helps to talk to somebody about it, but I've met a couple people, that this has happened to, that I became really close with, and I think they helped me more than anything because we just share a common bond. There's things, I don't even know, Rob that well. I know him. I've met him, quite a few times, and it's just like we know each other. We've known each other for a long time because there's just that bond there. We get each other.
I found other parents and other people that were dealing with, the death of their child to heroin. And like I said, that's when we kind of got together and started doing rallies and stuff. And, I held up a sign and it said, "I was just like you until I found my son dead." And a lot of people were sort of like, I can't believe that lady's over there holding that sign. But to me, I wanted it to be in your face because I wanted them to realize that we were no different than the average person, that was driving past us on their way to the store or to work or to school or doing the things that people do. We had a normal life. And I put up with some criticisms and harsh things that people would yell out the windows and say, but I didn't care, because I kept thinking, if I can just help one person, or if somebody drives by and sees this and they have that suspicion, that maybe they'll think, I saw that lady standing there with that sign. I don't want to be that person. And maybe they'll confront their loved one, or they'll help, they'll get them help.
It was about a year before I could do anything. One girl I think you're going to interview today, I saw her story on the Post-Dispatch's website. Woman takes to the street to fight heroin. And I said, I'm going to join her in the fight. And so I did. So now, as often as possible, I go out on mostly Saturdays. We have rallies. We all hold up signs that say, stop heroin, choose not to use heroin, heroin's in your town. And several of us hold up pictures of our sons and say we have lost our loved ones to heroin. A lot of people deny that it's going on and it can't be happening to their kid. And in fact, good kids are dying right and left. And until that stigma that we have is overcome, there'll be more deaths.
And that's where I find, that, I do not enjoy, but doing the rallies, to raise awareness and stuff in that area. But lately I've just been feeling personally, me, that here I'm standing on a corner with a sign of my lost child. They don't know me or they don't know my son. So how do I know that because of me standing on that street corner, somebody looked at me with tears rolling down my face and they didn't use that day? But I feel more like speaking at the forums at the high schools and raising awareness and informing parents about it, where they can go home and tell their children, you wouldn't believe this mother up there, her story. And that, I think that's where I really want to be.
The rallies, at the time that you're doing them, you do have a little bit of some energy, and you do feel you're doing something good because you are getting people honking and you are spreading awareness. But they suck the life out of you afterwards. And most parents that I've spoke to say the same experience for them. So thank God for the people that show up that don't have such a close loss, or maybe even no loss, that are putting themselves out there for this and trying to make a difference. And I appreciate that so much because I really don't feel like I have the energy to do it anymore.
I need to slow down and take a breather and just maybe limit it to maybe just speaking once in a while. But I think for the most part so far, it's kept me active and kept my mind off of other things. Because rallies and things like that and speaking are very draining too. It stirs it all back up again. The littlest thing will overwhelm me if I hear a song. if I'm in the grocery store and I see his favorite food. I've walked out of the grocery store before with a cart full of groceries. It's just like everything I do reminds me of him. And, you know, I got pictures like all in the living room of Brandon and stuff, and I don't have any of the other boys. And I don't want them to think that I loved Brandon more. But Brandon's gone, and I'm never gonna see Brandon again.
There's nothing that's gonna bring my son back. Nothing. I would give anything in this world if I could just have just even 5 more minutes with him, and I would give up everything I have. I mean, I wouldn't care if I could just see him one more time, you know? And then I sit there and I think, you know, I can close my eyes and, I mean, I hear his voice and him say, I love you, Mama, you know? And I'm always like, you know, in my mind, in my heart, I'm like, I love you too, Taylor, but I want him back.
I'd do it all again. Fighting the addiction. I'd take him back in a minute. Even if it was battling addiction. There's not a day goes by that I don't wish you were here with me.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
One thing I read, the lady said, as long as I kept my grief right here, I was not dishonoring my daughter's loss. However, enough time had passed, and it had been years, that she said she moved her to her shoulder. And her healing process began. But no, I'm keeping her right here. I'm still keeping her right here.
My son's name was Brandon Joseph Duran. He was born June 14th, 1989.
Taylor Wade Green, 9/5/91.
Travis William Henry, 11/28/84.
Natalie Renee Burke, May 12th, 1989, also known to the family as Nanny Ray.
How can we remember? How could we forget the last time we had spoken? The words we always meant to say aloud, to say out loud. Oh, the space between us, I can't call you if you're lost. All these chances fading, adding up the cost, and I want you to know, I need you to know. Always I will be